All right, Nick, let's talk about the Miami Hurricanes. This is a team really dominant, haven't lost a game yet this season. Cam Ward looks like he's on fire. The offense firing on all cylinders, scoring like 30 plus points a game. This is a team that looks like they're doing everything right. But yet, there's one thing that happened recently that would make you think maybe something's going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Something that really kind of caught the attention of a lot of the media, but I don't think what people are thinking is exactly what's at stake here. I think it's something really smart by Miami. I'm Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. And Nick, as I alluded to, Miami did something a little bit unconventional for a team that, by all accounts, is dominating, has a major hot streak. They have a players only meeting, which is usually in reserve for teams that are floundering, teams that have a lot of problems going on. But I think Miami, they're using this as a brilliant strategy. Let's get into the article and we can talk more about it on the other side. This is from Field Level Media. It says the Miami Hurricanes had a players only meeting a few days ago. What makes this interesting is that the Hurricanes don't have the criteria usually associated with player only meetings. They don't have a losing record. They're not coming off of a loss. Their coach isn't on the hot seat. Instead, the sixth-ranked Hurricanes are on a roll. They're set to visit Louisville on Saturday. Miami, which led by Heisman contender Cam Ward at quarterback, has scored at least 38 points in every game this season. However, the Hurricanes had to rally from a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter against Virginia Tech and overcome a 20-point hole at Cal. We have a lot to prove, Cristobal said this week. We have to look at the first half of the season with humility, but fortunately, we have some alpha leaders, and that was proven this week with that players-only meeting. You really love to hear this from Miami, Nick. You love that these guys are pulling together saying, hey, we weren't as dominant as we needed to be. We were put in some bad situations. Let's nip it in the bud before it gets out of hand. I really like this strategy from Miami. Curious what your thoughts are on this one. But before we get to you, Miami fans, in the comment section below, article says it, big game against Louisville this weekend. I want to know what your thoughts are heading into the game. Does this players only meeting flip things around as far as no more deficit? Is it going to be complete domination? Let us know what your thoughts on the final score are in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what do you think about all of this news coming out of Miami?
So I think it's very interesting. I think it's an indication that the leaders, in terms of the players specifically in the locker room, aren't content with the fact they're 6-0, even though they've obviously had a very couple close victories that came down to the wire that could have gone either way, obviously, both against Cal and against Virginia Tech. And I think it's really smart by the leadership in the locker room, because one of the things that can happen, and look, I played college football, small time D1 AA, nothing like Miami level, of course, but I played on a lot of bad teams, right? Just the reality is I had one winning season in 4 years of college football. And in the middle of each one of those losing seasons that I had, there was invariably some kind of, players only kind of team meeting. How do we right this ship? And I always thought it was a stupid waste of time. I was like, look, we're not talented. We're not good. Like, we need to practice more. We need to be in the film room more. We need to lift weights more. We need to get better at football. The fact of us like having a meeting about getting better at football isn't going to help us get better at football. Miami, being a good, talented team that we know they are, is the opposite, right? A lot of their problems have been mental, maybe not focused, maybe having some issues living up to their talent level, at least during their last two games. And I think this is where a players-only meeting can really set the stage, because if you have the talent, you don't need to get on the practice field as much as like bad teams like when I was on. You don't need to hit the weight room as much, right? You've already stacked, right? You're already a really talented bunch. You just need to focus up and take some accountability. You can't rely on Cam Ward to bail you out in the fourth quarter of games anymore. And I think that's what the purpose of this kind of meeting is. And look, I think the leadership in Miami, I think it's a great strategy, because even though it's been two close victories, the reality is you're undefeated, top 5, top 6 in the country, whatever the heck they are. Like, I guarantee you a lot of players in Miami are like, hey, man, things are going good. We're undefeated. What else more could you want? But you want the leadership in the locker room to not be satisfied and say, listen, there's a really good chance we could be 4-2 right now, and people could be talking about how disappointing we are, and we are heading to face a tough team on the road this weekend if we want to go where we want to go, which is college football playoff, national title contender. We can't rely on these fourth quarter comebacks, these deficits. We've got to hold ourselves accountable. It's not about, getting on practice and figuring out who's going to be our starters or how good of a football player we are. We know we're a good team. We know we're a talented team. It's time to act like it. It's time to be mature, and it's time to be accountable. And from that perspective, I love this from the leadership, specifically in the locker room by the Miami Hurricanes. Great sign for the future here.
Yeah, Nick, and I think that's exactly right, and I think this is gonna be great for Miami, but if you look at the schedule, I think there's something more here as well because you look at the beginning of the season, I'm gonna rattle off some numbers here: 41-17, 56-9, 62-0, 50-15. First 4 games of the season by Miami against probably lesser, opponents, maybe minus Florida. I think Florida's probably on, par with Virginia Tech and Cal, and then Virginia Tech 38-34. Cal 39-38. Those games are too close for comfort. Like you said, this is a team that wants to turn it around. But you look down the rest of the schedule: Louisville, Florida State, who's being really bad right now, Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Syracuse. For a number 6 overall team, there's not really too many challenges left on the schedule. And this is a team, if they want to go to the college football playoff and be dominant, they have to dominate every team left down this schedule. They're going to have to come in being I mean, I know they're going to make it in if they win out, but the fact is, they're going to have a whole nother level of competition when they get into the college football playoff. You can't sneak by Virginia Tech. You can't sneak by Cal and expect to come in and play Alabama's and Georgia's and, Ohio State's, Oregon's, and think you're going to be able to beat those teams, because you're not. You have to get back to the blowing people out, playing dominant defense, scoring 1,000,000 points on offense. That's what Miami has to do pretty much for the rest of the season, because unfortunately, not a whole lot of tests left on this schedule, which could be good and maybe gives you, an easier ride to the college football playoff. But once you get there, you're going to have to go up against these tough teams, and they've got to show that they have what it makes, and they're going to have to do that through the rest of the schedule.
Great point there. With an expanded college football playoff, it's no longer how well do you do in one game, maybe two, if you sneak in as one of those top 4 teams. It's about playing your best football in top competition when the playoff starts, right? There's no warm-up period. It is 100% go, do or die for multiple rounds. It's not about surviving through the regular season. I felt like with the BCS era and then these college football playoff 4-game era, it was a lot about, can you survive the regular season and find a way in? No more. It's not about survival. It's about playing your best football. And that's exactly what the Miami Hurricanes leadership in the locker room recognizes. I think they'll have a chance to really show the world this weekend against Louisville. I'm excited to see how they respond.